The official first look at Season 3 just dropped, and if you thought Season 2 was messy, you're not ready for what's coming next. Because this time, it's not just about secrets anymore. It's about exposure. It's about revenge. And it's about the truth finally breaking everything apart. The moment I saw that first glimpse, I knew one thing immediately. This season is darker. You can literally feel it. The tension isn't romantic anymore. It's dangerous. After that heartbreaking finale, where Ruby's entire future got destroyed because of Mortimer's manipulation, we all knew Season 3 had to hit different. But this feels personal. The first look doesn't waste time. It picks up right where everything collapsed. Ruby is no longer the hopeful scholarship girl trying to survive in a rich world. She looks hurt, angry, determined, and honestly, that scares me in the best way possible. You know what makes this even more intense? The silence. In the first look, nobody seems calm. Nobody seems safe. It's like the whole school is holding its breath. The Buffert name, which used to feel untouchable, suddenly feels fragile. And that's exactly what we predicted. Once the truth starts moving, there's no stopping it. And from what we're seeing, Lydia is not backing down this time. She looks like someone who's finally done protecting everyone else. And if she really goes public with everything, Mortimer won't just be angry, he'll be exposed. And let's talk about James for a second, because something about him feels different too. In the first look, he doesn't seem like the confused boy stuck between loyalty and love. He seems focused, almost calculated, like he's finally choosing a side. And if James truly stands against his father this season, that changes the entire power dynamic of Maxton Hall. For 2 seasons, Mortimer controlled everything: the school, the narrative, the damage. But what happens when his own son stops playing along? That's the energy Season 3 is giving. A shift, a rebellion, a collapse of control. And can we just appreciate how the tone of this first look feels heavier? The colors look colder. The atmosphere feels tense. Even the way the characters move feels slower, like they're carrying the weight of everything that happened. This isn't the glamorous drama from Season 1 anymore. This is the consequence era. Every lie is catching up. Every secret is circling back. And Maxton Hall has always been good at that. It never forgets. What really caught my attention is how isolated Ruby looks. After being accused, humiliated, and kicked out because of something she didn't even do, she has every reason to walk away from all of them. And I'm starting to think Season 3 won't just be about her fighting to clear her name. It might be about her deciding whether Maxton Hall even deserves her anymore. And that's powerful. Because for the first time, the elite world needs her more than she needs them. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The first look hints at serious legal trouble. Graham's situation isn't just background drama anymore. It feels central. The tension around him is heavy, and if Mortimer pushes harder to keep him locked up, that means war. And we already know Aunt Oelia is not someone you underestimate. If she steps in fully this season, Mortimer won't be fighting students anymore. He'll be fighting someone who actually understands power. And let's be honest, this whole thing is bigger than just school politics now. The will, Cordelia's death, Percy's involvement, the necklace with the tiny key. None of that was random. And the first look makes it clear that the past is coming back. You can almost feel flashbacks coming. You can feel old secrets waiting to explode. And if the theory about the twins' real father turns out to be true, that's not just drama. That's a complete rewrite of the Buffert legacy. What I love about this first look is that it doesn't give everything away. It teases. It builds pressure. It makes you question who's loyal and who's pretending. Because one thing Maxton Hall does perfectly is betrayal. Every season, someone stays quiet when they shouldn't. Someone protects the wrong person. Someone sacrifices the truth. And Season 3 feels like the season where silence finally stops working. Let's talk about Lydia, because this might actually be her season. For 2 seasons, Lydia has been stuck in the middle. Quiet, observing, protecting everyone else's image while slowly breaking inside. But in this first look, she doesn't look scared anymore. She looks done, and that's dangerous. When someone like Lydia stops caring about reputation, that's when the real damage begins. If she truly goes to the parents' council and reveals the relationship, the pregnancy, and everything Mortimer tried to bury, that's not just family drama. That's public humiliation for one of the most powerful names connected to the school. And you already know Mortimer doesn't forgive betrayal. That's why I think Season 3 won't just show him angry. It's going to show him desperate. Because power only works when people are afraid of you. And what happens when your own daughter decides she's not afraid anymore? That shift alone could collapse everything he built. And from the energy of the first look, you can tell his control is slipping. It's subtle, but it's there. The calm confidence he had before, it feels cracked. Now let's connect that to James. James has always been torn between loyalty to his father and love for Ruby. But this season feels different. He doesn't look confused anymore. He looks like someone who finally understands the cost of staying silent. And that's huge. Because James's silence in the past caused damage. Those photos from Season 1? They came back and destroyed Ruby's life. And whether he meant to or not, he played a part in that chain reaction. Season 3 might be his redemption arc, but redemption in Maxton Hall never comes easy. If James turns against Mortimer, he's not just risking money or status, he's risking his entire identity, everything he's been raised to protect. And the first look gives us that feeling like he's ready to burn bridges. The question is he strong enough to follow through? And what about Ruby? This is the version of Ruby I've been waiting to see. Not the hopeful girl trying to survive in a world that constantly reminds her she doesn't belong, but the version who's been hurt, betrayed, and pushed to her limit. Because when Ruby reaches her limit, she doesn't break quietly. She evolves. And here's something interesting. The first look doesn't show her begging or defending herself. It shows distance. And that distance says everything. She's not chasing approval anymore. She's not trying to prove her innocence to people who never truly trusted her. It feels like she's stepping back and planning. And if Ruby starts playing smart instead of emotional, that changes the whole game. Now let's get into the bigger mystery, the will. You already know there's no way Cordelia would leave her own children out like that. It never made sense. And the more this story unfolds, the more obvious it becomes that Mortimer's version of events has holes in it. Huge ones. The original will theory isn't just fan imagination anymore. It feels like setup. And remember that necklace with the tiny key? Percy still has it. That can't be random. Maxton Hall loves symbolic objects. They don't introduce something like that unless it leads somewhere. And if that key unlocks proof, if it leads to the real will, that's not just revenge, that's justice. Which brings us to Percy. He's always been around, protective, involved, watching. And if the theory about him being the twins' real father turns out to be true, then everything changes. Mortimer's authority, the inheritance, the family name, it all becomes unstable. And Season 3 feels like it's finally ready to pull that thread. But here's the scary part. What if the truth doesn't fix anything? Because exposing secrets in Maxton Hall never makes things simple. It makes them worse before they get better. And with Graham still in legal trouble, with Lydia ready to speak out, with James possibly choosing a side, and with Ruby no longer playing nice, this isn't just a drama anymore. And now we need to talk about something that nobody is paying enough attention to. The emotional damage. Because Season 3 doesn't just look dramatic. It looks heavy. And when I say heavy, I mean the kind of weight that changes people permanently. You can feel it in the first look. The smiles are gone. The playful tension is gone. Even the romantic energy feels different. It's not butterflies anymore. It's complicated. It's painful. It's real. Ruby and James aren't standing on equal ground anymore. After everything that happened, after her expulsion, after Graham's arrest, after Mortimer manipulated the entire narrative, their relationship can't just go back to normal. And I think that's exactly what Season 3 is going to explore. Love after betrayal, trust after silence. Because, let's be honest, James didn't pull the trigger, but his past actions loaded the gun. Those photos from Season 1 were never harmless. And when Mortimer used them, It proved something important. In Maxton Hall, nothing stays buried. Every small decision becomes a future consequence. So how does Ruby look at James now? That's the tension I'm most excited to see. Not just whether they'll be together, but whether she can truly forgive him. And from the energy of the first look, forgiveness doesn't look easy. It looks earned. And then there's Graham. His situation feels darker than ever. Being arrested, staying silent about Lydia, protecting the mother of his children even when it destroyed Ruby's life. That kind of decision leaves scars. Season 3 might finally show us the emotional side of Graham that we haven't fully seen. Because right now, he's not just a victim of Mortimer's anger. He's a victim of his own silence, and if Lydia steps forward publicly, that changes everything for him too. It could free him, or it could drag him deeper into the chaos. Either way, he's no longer just a background character. His storyline feels central now. But here's what really makes this season feel explosive. The power structure at Maxton Hall is shifting. For 2 seasons, the school felt controlled, organized, almost untouchable. The rich families dictated everything. Reputation was currency. And Mortimer understood that better than anyone. But once scandal becomes public, reputation turns fragile. And from what we're seeing, Season 3 is about that fragility. The Parents' Council isn't just a small detail. If Lydia exposes the truth there, it won't stay contained. News spreads fast in elite circles. And when money and influence collide with scandal, alliances start breaking. Families start choosing sides. And that's something we haven't fully seen yet in Maxton Hall. Division among the elite. Imagine the Buffert name no longer being respected the same way. Imagine whispers in hallways. Imagine parents pulling their support. That kind of social downfall is worse than any school punishment. And Mortimer knows that. That's why he'll fight harder than ever, but fighting harder doesn't always mean winning. Now let's talk about Oilia, because I truly believe Season 3 is going to elevate her role in a major way. She's not just the cool aunt with resources. She feels strategic, calm, observant. And if she really has an army of lawyers like we think, then Mortimer isn't dealing with teenagers anymore. He's dealing with someone who understands the system. And if the will was faked, if Cordelia's real intentions were hidden, then Oilia has every reason to expose the truth, not just for revenge, but for justice. And the first look gives subtle hints that legal documents and past secrets are coming back into focus. And don't forget Percy. He's always been there in the background, but Season 3 feels like the moment he steps fully into the spotlight. That necklace with the tiny key? I refuse to believe it's just sentimental. Maxton Hall doesn't operate like that. Objects mean something. Symbols lead somewhere. If that key unlocks proof of the original will, or something tied to Cordelia's past, then Percy becomes the bridge between past and present. And if the twins really are his children, that revelation alone could destroy Mortimer's authority overnight. But here's the twist. What if Mortimer already suspects something? Because powerful people rarely move blindly. And if he senses the truth closing in, Season 3 might show him making even more extreme decisions to protect his control. And that's when things get dangerous. The first look doesn't just tease romance or drama. It teases escalation, emotional escalation, legal escalation, family escalation. This isn't just a continuation. It feels like the beginning of the end for someone. And the most terrifying part? We still haven't seen the full trailer. If this is just the first look, imagine what they're holding back. Imagine the secrets they haven't hinted at yet. Because Maxton Hall always keeps one major twist hidden until the last second. Season 3 is not just continuing the story, it's rewriting it. Because if you really pay attention, this doesn't feel like the same Maxton Hall anymore. The hierarchy is unstable. The relationships are cracked. The secrets are too big to contain. And when a show reaches that point, that's when everything changes permanently. What stands out the most is how isolated each character feels. Even when they're surrounded by people, there's distance. And that distance tells us something important. Trust is broken across the board. Ruby doesn't fully trust James. James doesn't fully trust his father. Lydia doesn't trust the system. Graham doesn't trust silence anymore. And when trust disappears, chaos steps in. That's the energy Season 3 is carrying. And I keep thinking about Cordelia, because the deeper this story goes, the more her shadow grows. For someone who isn't physically present, she's everywhere. The will, the necklace, the family tension, the rivalry between Percy and Mortimer, it all traces back to her. And if Season 3 finally gives us flashbacks into what really happened between Cordelia, Percy, and Mortimer, that could completely shift how we see the entire series. What if Mortimer's anger didn't start with power, but with jealousy? What if everything he's done since then has been about control because he lost something he couldn't win back? That kind of emotional backstory would make him even more complex, not justified, but layered. And Maxton Hall loves layered villains. Mortimer isn't just evil for no reason. He's calculated, strategic, and possibly wounded in ways we haven't fully seen. But even the smartest villain makes mistakes, and his biggest mistake might have been underestimating the people closest to him. Because Lydia stepping forward is not a small rebellion. It's a direct attack. And James choosing Ruby over silence, that's betrayal in Mortimer's eyes. If Percy holds proof, if Oilia pushes legally, if Ruby stops playing defense and starts playing smart, Mortimer won't be controlling the board anymore. He'll be reacting. And we've never really seen Mortimer react. We've only seen him plan. That shift alone makes Season 3 unpredictable. Now let's talk about Ruby's future, because her expulsion wasn't just about school. It was about her dreams, Oxford, scholarships, everything she worked for. And if Season 3 focuses on her rebuilding instead of just surviving, that could be the most powerful storyline yet. Imagine Ruby not just fighting to return, but proving she never needed their validation in the first place. Imagine her rising in a way that forces the elite to respect her on her terms. That's the kind of emotional payoff fans have been waiting for. But here's the problem. Healing and revenge can't exist peacefully at the same time. If Ruby wants justice, she has to step back into the world that hurt her. And that world is still controlled by powerful people who don't like losing. So every step forward she takes could trigger another attack. And that tension, that constant push and pull, is what's going to make Season 3 intense from start to finish. And don't forget the social fallout. Maxton Hall has always been about image, about who sits at what table, who has influence, who whispers behind closed doors. Once scandal hits publicly, that ecosystem shifts. Friends turn cautious, allies become distant, and enemies become louder. Season 3 feels like it's going to explore that ripple effect deeply. Not just the main drama, but how every side character reacts. Harriet and Damien hinted that we'll see more of the supporting characters. And that makes sense, because when a powerful family starts collapsing, everyone connected to them feels it. Some will defend them, some will distance themselves, some will take advantage. And that's where things get messy. Because sometimes the biggest threat isn't the obvious villain, it's the quiet opportunist waiting for power to change hands. Season 3 is not just continuing the story, it's rewriting it. Because if you really pay attention, this doesn't feel like the same Maxton Hall anymore. The hierarchy is unstable, the relationships are cracked, the secrets are too big to contain. And when a show reaches that point, that's when everything changes permanently. What stands out the most is how isolated each character feels. Even when they're surrounded by people, there's distance, and that distance tells us something important. Trust is broken across the board. Ruby doesn't fully trust James. James doesn't fully trust his father. Lydia doesn't trust the system. Graham doesn't trust silence anymore. And when trust disappears, chaos steps in. That's the energy season 3 is carrying. And I keep thinking about Cordelia. Because the deeper this story goes, the more her shadow grows. For someone who isn't physically present, she's everywhere. The will, the necklace, the family tension, the rivalry between Percy and Mortimer.